Good morning and welcome back to the Illiterate Greek. Today I want to talk about Ephesians 6, but in particular I want to look at verse 16. And it says, "In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God." So we're looking at that word sword, and I want to take a look at the Old Testament and the New Testament version of it. In the Old Testament, it was H2719 in the Strongs. Cherub, it was basically that, a sword. It was a sharp instrument that was used to protect and defend yourself. In the New Testament, it is Strong's G3162, and it is the Greek word machahira, and interestingly, it refers to judicial punishment, and that's kind of what I want to look at in particularly. Again, in the Old Testament, the sword was just that. It was a sharp instrument for offense and defense. But through the new covenant of Jesus, the sword has not only become a weapon of defense, but the sword has become a weapon of legal punishment, judicial punishment. We now have legal precedent because of what Jesus did on the cross. We have legal precedents to exact legal punishment on the enemy when he attacks us. So every piece, back in that chapter, every piece of the armor comes from God. But the sword of the Spirit is God Himself. Now, in the Old Testament, soldiers had to learn a lot of things. They had to learn how to use swords and shields and spears and everything else. But they had to learn how to properly wield a sword for its maximum effect. Because when used properly, all it took was one stroke of the sword and your enemy was dead. So they trained vigorously and diligently to become proficient at the use of the sword. The better they were with the sword, the more effective they were against their enemies. Even so, for us to train in the we must train in the Word of God to wield it properly against the enemy. 2 Timothy 2:5 says, "To study and do your best to present yourselves to God approved, a workman tested by trial who has no reason to be ashamed, accurately handling and skillfully teaching the word of truth." Again, the armor of God is made by God, but the sword of the Spirit is God Himself. We want to learn that word, and we want to be able to use that word effectively against the enemy. Thanks for coming and listening today. Lord bless you all, and learn to wield that sword. Goodbye.